Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao of Pizza podcast, where I talk with top industry innovators in the warehousing, logistics, and supply chain business with a holistic twist. Now, before I introduce Tony Caetano, this episode is brought to you by Specialized Storage Solutions, Inc. Now, listen, I've been in the logistics storage industry for several decades, and I know I don't look that old, but it's true. We provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So basically, you have a warehouse that needs rack, shelving, carts, conveyors, or mezzanines. We help with the design, engineering, installation, inspections, and repairs to help clients optimize their logistics operation. You know what is funny, Tony? Sometimes people don't even realize that we can actually help with permit acquisition services. We take a holistic look at your entire business supply chain to develop the resources for continually improving your operation. To learn more, visit specialracks.com. Give us a call at 707-732-3892, or even give out my personal email address for podcast listeners. So email me at markhiddleson@aol.com if you're ready to take your warehouse storage and retrieval systems to the next level. Now, today's guest, Tony Caetano, is an Army veteran with 30 plus years of experience in the temperature-controlled supply chain solutions business. He's worked for several of the large companies in the third-party cold storage industry. He climbed the ranks starting as an entry-level warehouse lift truck operator to holding positions as division manager, general manager, and eventually the regional vice president of operations with over 400 employees at 9 locations. Tony is now bringing his natural leadership talent and operational excellence skills to individual clients in the logistics industry through his new venture, CI. Tony, welcome to the Tao Pizza.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And let me say that I'm honored to even be considered part of this group that you would even want to interview me. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you were definitely in the top 10. We have a history. And I have to thank Michael Thomas. I want to give Michael Thomas a huge shout out. I did an interview with him. He was actually one of the first guests. Anyone, this is going to be an awesome episode, but if you like this, you're going to love to check that out too, because Michael was an important mentor for both of us.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to ask you first, and because a lot of people ask me, like, how did you get into this business? So how did you get started in the logistics and cold chain? Even cold chain is pretty specific business.
Well, I got to tell you, a lot of it has to do with luck. I had just gotten out of the military less than a year and a half, and I knew that forklift drivers made better money than the guys working at the gas station. I knew that much, and I happened to be dating a girl who is now my wife. We've been married almost 38 years, and but her dad worked at Christian Salvesen, used to be Merchants. And she might have been thinking, hey, you know, this guy's a halfway decent or whatever. But she goes, I think they're hiring over there. And I had just, an opportunity to go over there. And I literally started as the assistant to the assistant janitor. They didn't even let me near the equipment at the beginning. So, but it was an opportunity. And I swore I was going to quit every day when I went to work, because this was, I was planning on doing something else. I didn't know what it was. And 28 years later, it was the best decision I ever made to get into this business. So all luck.
Yeah, luck, and there was a lady involved. I love that part of the stories. And congratulations! How many years you've been married?
28 years.
Wow.
And that story gets a little more interesting because where I started, which you're very familiar with, the Modesto facility. He was a warehouseman there for over 35 years. So not only was I dating his daughter, but from time to time we were working together. And eventually I left the union and became his support leader and so on and so forth. So that story is a little interesting. So even my extended family is very familiar with my career.
Awesome. Now, I wanted to, I have a ton of respect for veterans, and I knew you were a veteran when we worked together, and I always really liked working with you, your approach, your attitude, and all that. Um, and you were actually in a time where you actually were in combat and in Desert Storm. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you, um, you know, after that experience, what was it like coming back, and what are some of the things you did coming back to really, get healthy and get back into working in a regular
You
job,
know, it's
getting out of the military.
sure. And it's funny you use the term healthy. I didn't even know what that meant at that time because I was a young kid. I went in when I was 18. I had just shy of 4 years. I wasn't even quite 22. So imagine what you were doing when you were 22. I
Yeah,
had a lot of experiences and I thought you could just come home and I was raised in the time where you just get a good job and two and a half kids, a white picket fence and all that stuff. And it wasn't quite like that. And there was even emotional. I just came from something that was kind of important. The government gave me a lot of equipment and they put a lot of trust in me as a young man. And now I'm going on 13 jobs in like 15 months, just some that I never even showed up to. They gave me a uniform at a Mr. Video. I'm sorry, Mr. Video. You guys are not around anymore, but yeah, they even gave me the shirt and the cummerbund, and and I just couldn't take myself over there. This opportunity, when I say luck, the opportunity to get into warehousing and get a good job really stabilized everything. And within a year and a half, I was buying my first home and stuff through hard work. Obviously, you create a lot of your own luck, but it was very rough dealing with that. And just to emphasize, being so young coming out and not really, you think you're grown, but you're not. Right? You're going to
yeah.
learn a lot of life lessons. So that was the challenge for me, and this business gave me focus and a direction of something that I could do.
So what? So the cold storage, like you were saying, you wanted to go home or quit every day because that's a tough business. I mean, we'd say cold storage,
Yes.
we're talking 0 degrees. One of the buildings you worked in, it's I'm pretty sure they call it's G building in Modesto was
Yeah.
like -20. And didn't you say one of
The
your
ice
best
cream
opportunities,
room.
ice cream?
That's what
So
it's called. The ice cream room. Yeah.
so didn't you get this? Wasn't that one of your first breaks? Was that no one wanted to work? So first, I want to ask you first, what was it like? Okay, you didn't want to, because I'm thinking cold storage or Mr. Video with the cummerbund and everything. Like I would have taken the cummerbund, but you took
Yeah.
the freezer suit in the lift truck. What kept you hanging in there?
Really, it was. So when you start in this business, there's a lot of people. Grocery outlet was really taking off at the time, and they were hiring a lot of people, and there was a lot of churn and burn. Unfortunately, the cold is not for everybody. And then there's a production standard to keep at a steady pace, so everybody's profitable. This is also a new development. They were in their infancy. Um, so I had the stability of getting hours. I knew they were going to pay me every Friday. This is a good job. The cold was a challenge though, because it's not just the cold. In these warehouses, generally, they don't have windows. So you may go to work when it's dark and you leave when it's dark and you're doing the same thing over and over. I think the ice cream room might have saved my career there because it took me off of graveyard, which I didn't want to be. I was a young man, had a beautiful girlfriend. I wanted to see her more frequently. And they said, the only thing we got is the one place nobody wants to work. So I said, okay, I'll come to swing shift. At least I got a normal weekend. I could sleep normal at night. I got to work in the ice cream room, but working in the ice room gave me a lot of solitude, which allowed me to make a lot of mistakes and to excel, but to really learn the business because I had my own tiny warehouse. I was the only one working in there. I was picking all the orders, I was doing the receiving and stuff. So that really set me, well, if you can handle this, every other temperature gets better. So it really just took a life of itself. But I didn't realize how much I liked playing Tetris with the warehouse, if that makes sense. Bringing in pallets, making them fit, utilizing space. It really was a lot of fun. So the 12-hour days and a minus whatever, it wasn't the end of the world. And there was money to be made. It was also the first example that if you take a chance in this business, if you're willing to move out of your comfort zone. Nobody wanted to go to this building because it wasn't as comfortable. Maybe the work was a little whatever. But taking that chance benefited me there. And it really was the first example in this business that if you're willing to move and try something and take on some responsibility, and I learned that from a very smart man, it will pay off for you. And it did.
Yeah. Who's are you going to share who it is? Who's the guy that taught you that?
Mike Thomas.
Michael.
Mike Thomas. Yeah. Because he set it up as far as when I came on board, he was already running things. He became the general manager. When I crossed over and became management, he was the driving factor behind that. I owe a lot to him. I have a few mentors that hopefully I could mention throughout this, but Mike Thomas, a real big one. He basically said, if you can do this and you're willing to grab the reins, the world's going to be your oyster because the people will want you.
And here's the other thing. If you can earn Thomas's trust, you can earn any. He's tough. I mean, he's a good man.
He is.
He'll give you an opportunity. Yeah. And I really like him. Over the years, I've had clients, and he actually even hired somebody that worked for him that I'm with Joe Ferris. So Joe Ferris worked for Michael Thomas, and Michael was putting a lot of pressure on him, and he kind of turned over the racking responsibility. And the Joe Ferris interview is a great interview too, because he actually fired me from Grocery Outlet as a vendor because he's like, look, you're not meeting these standards. And
sure.
And I was thinking, he doesn't get it, what we're up against in their operations, because, with client in our business, it's tough because you've got to have your stuff out of the way. And what we do in building racks isn't part of the day-to-day routine. And so I was thinking about it even before, he decided to work with somebody else. I'm like, man, he needs to work with another vendor, see how they doing here under these circumstances. And he did.
Sure.
One project. And I said, look, I think it's a good idea. I go, but we're not breaking up. We're just seeing other people. I told him that, and he laughed. He's always laughed at that because that vendor got in the middle of a project and they couldn't finish it. They left and couldn't finish the job. He had to call me back in. They had the wrong material. They had the wrong levels. The guys, it was a lot of this. We were having problems with people not showing up to work or car trouble or some just like the things that happen that really, if you get a flat tire once a year, it's cool. If you get it once a week, there's a problem.
There's a pattern.
But Michael Thomas was driving that because he was driving him. Hey, these projects need to be done on time. We need to have the racking. We need to have the, so he's a tough, and I've always liked that. And I even told Joe, I said, you know what? Because he was complaining about the service, and I go, he's like, we may not be. And I'm like, you're my number one customer. That's like, this is the greatest we can do. This is the best. Like, you're the top. And he's like, man.
Yeah.
But then, we worked things out. And then after that, obviously our relationship was a lot better. And our company. So now we're giving way better service. We're better at the drawings. We're better at having stuff there ahead of time. The guys are better at communicating. I mean, we up leveled it, and it really, comes from a leader like Michael Thomas, and he's mentored a lot of people. So yeah, I'm glad we mentioned him twice. But that's a good one.
Hey, if I could indulge me on this, Michael Thomas, he also showed me that no matter where you're at on the list, right? Sometimes you just got to pick cases. So your business might not be picking cases, right? It could be making widgets, but sometimes the leaders have to lead from the front. You don't have to be proficient at it. Sometimes it's just the effort, a genuine effort. But if you're fluent in it, and you've seen him, he can pick cases. Even at, getting ready to retire, I will put him in the top 10 in his warehouse if you gave him a week. I really, on top of his immense knowledge of the business, his ability to connect with the people that he did connect with, because he is a hard guy. You can't fool him. You're not going to tell him about, certain things that if he's good at it, I mean, you can't, he's just too smart at it. He knows too much. And then to have the ability to do that kind of work, huge impact on me.
Yeah, he's a great mentor, a great example. And I've seen him cases. He's the my team will call me and say the guy with the English accent is working in the warehouse today pulling orders. And I don't think I've ever been with him and walked a facility where he didn't see something that was out of order or a case
or straighten something out or pull wrap, right? Be in a different warehouse and he'll just start pulling the wrap off of a pick line or something like that. That's who he is.
Yeah.
That's what makes him awesome.
So one of my favorite stories about when we and then I was thinking about it, it's funny because we've been doing some work together. We've engaged your CI skill set, and I shared this story about I mean, this was 20 years ago, I think, or maybe more. We were both in our 20s, and you said, I have an opportunity. And I knew that you were the type of leader that you use the word opportunity when there's a challenge. Like, we don't say, even I didn't like to say problems, I'd say we have a challenge. We said we have an opportunity. And I knew it's like, that means we screwed something up and he's going to give us an opportunity to fix it. But
I can't believe that you even remember that. It was so long ago.
Because I remember it just clicked and I'm like, this is going to be a pain in the ass, but I like the way this guy's thinking. We're going to work this out. And we did. So, share where that comes from, or, some of the things that worked for you over the years, because leading, obviously, it's difficult situations, but there really is opportunities, right?
I couldn't agree more. Opportunities are really where you build those relationships, right? Somebody calls you and they say, I got a problem. You say, well, there's an opportunity for us it could be something as simple as a general manager saying, I need some space, but I don't, more capacity, but I can't build a building. I can't afford new racks. We've done everything we can. It's something as simple as, well, have you fixed the racks that you have? How many racks do you have down? Well, shoot, I have over 300 racks that are down. Those are those opportunities. And that's where I learned those. I wouldn't have learned it really if it wasn't for what I was exposed to in warehousing. Because as I was moving up the ladder and I was interacting with you, I was a little higher up on the list. I had more responsibility. So I was already getting training. And while you're doing it, you're not sure, is this something else? Is it the flavor of the week? But the CI stuff really took off because it lended to my common sense approach to things. And also some military background. Little did I know that we were using CI, best practice. There's a reason why we all do this uniformly, because it works. That doesn't mean that you don't have variances, but a good standardization will usually help any kind of business. And then those one-offs that need a specific, or let's bring in an expert, you can identify them easier. So that really resonated with me. And I figured if I'm saying the right stuff, then eventually I'll be doing the right stuff. And it made an impact on you. So I'd like to think that it worked.
It is because, back then I was young and I was hustling, and I'm like, and I'm still, I like to think that I'm hustling, but it's, there were people back then. I don't know if it was because I was younger, or maybe I just had a different mindset, but sometimes, and it still happens from time to time. I'm actually shocked now, but some people abuse their vendors, or they look at a vendor as like a lower, and
second priority.
Yeah, second priority.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, and
let me get my trucks out first.
Yeah, it's like, well, the vendor, that's just a vendor, and I don't have to worry about it. But you impressed me because you valued us. We weren't just a vendor. It wasn't like, hey, we can hire anybody else off the street. And you must have been like that with all your vendors. And so, what was it about that made you, want to work with the vendors instead of having it be this like, what do you call it, where they're, it's a relationship that's adversarial, like I win, you lose type,
or it doesn't run as smoothly as it could have. I mean, let's put it like that. The reason that it really clicked with me is because I like efficiency. So as they started giving me responsibility and say, hey, you got to cut the overtime here and stuff, I'm looking at where is it at and stuff. And generally when we do a project with a vendor, hey, let's keep two guys over, let's throw everything into the aisle, let them do their work. And you guys could run into snags we're trying to pick. It was a whole lot easier to turn you into a partner because, one, we were paying you to do a job. It behooves me to make sure that you guys can get in, do your job safely, efficiently, and get out. How can I operate? I know what my knowns were. I didn't know what your knowns were. So I tried to work around, what can I do? Is it a matter of, we'll do 3 bays that'll be ready for you? You guys do a little bit of work, then we'll start backfilling if we can, or whatever the case may be. Or it could be as simple as, can you have all of these cleared out? Then we would arrange our schedule around, because you guys weren't there all the time. And the sooner we can get you guys out, the better we were all. You as a company, you did a good job efficiently, and us, we were able to maximize the dollars that we did invest to get back to business. It was that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, because it does seem, the collaboration model is way better than the competition model where we get into situations still where, we're having to ask, and I never, and I've done this, and it was true with the Michael Thomas thing when Joe Ferris was giving me a hard time. I never go over somebody's head. Like, I could have called Thomas and said, "Hey, you're new guy.
What's going on?"
But I'm not going to do that. And so it just works. It works better. And a lot of times I am working with people where I might know the owner of the company, but the appropriate relationship for me is be it the warehouse manager, even the maintenance manager, and things like that. And so even if I don't know the owner, I look at, the people, and it's not just that job. I mean, now that was 25 years ago, I think, or maybe we must have started when we were in kindergarten, right? Right out of
you maybe, me not so much.
No, we're the same age. I wanted to ask you a follow-up question about the military. What are some of the other skills that were transferable that you and it sounds like you kind of figured out as you went along, hey, this is something I learned. What are some other things?
I want to say that most everybody in the military is in the logistics business on some kind of level. Most of it is hurry up and wait. From combat soldiers packing their gear as efficiently as possible with weight and height restrictions, to long supply chains with food, ammunition, and fuel. That's really where I started learning how to put the puzzles together. How can you make sure that, for lack of a better term, how do you make sure that the bullets that you need are going to be there when you're in the hot spot, right? And that could be food, medicine, or whatever the case may be. So when you're being deployed someplace far, you're loading almost whole cities, vehicles, and you don't have the luxury of calling in as many tugboats as you need. You get X amount of transport, and X amount of tonnage has to fit in it. And that's not really what they send you to school for, right? They send you to school for communications. You might be the liaison for whatever. You might have a security clearance, but at the end of the day, everybody has to pack their own gear, or their unit's gear, or their department's gear into their vehicles to move halfway around the world. And that will teach you, even the people who weren't quite as bright, they shine a little bit brighter after a few years of doing that, just because it helps you compartmentalize, and your whole daily life becomes, how do I make my garage more efficient? I can maximize it better because I'm used to doing those things, even to that level.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're doing all of that, and it's logistics, and it's under the most extreme pressure that you could possibly imagine. So that's a great example. So moving into some of the milestones. So you at some point you built a whole new facility. Share a little bit about that experience and how that came about. I mean, you built a cold storage, right? You built the building from the ground up. I mean, you didn't actually go out there and build it, but you built the business.
I did. I got to be involved with an unbelievable project for Grocery Outlet. They had been distributing their product out of Modesto since the beginning, almost. And they had a need to supply their stores in the Pacific Northwest with a similar but not quite as large footprint as the Modesto facility. It's a large facility, and a few years went by. They had been asking for it, and I think, and I wasn't privy to these conversations at the time, but basically grocery outlet said, if you don't build us a building, we're going to have somebody else build us one, just because we can't afford to have all this transportation, and just the business has evolved. So as good partners, VersaCold at the time built a facility, or went into agreement to service grocery outlet from up there and take the Pacific Northwest and some Oregon, and that made the most logistical sense out of that facility. And then they were going to subsidize it with fish coming in from Tacoma and Seattle, because that was a big market there. So I was able to piggyback, and the reason ultimately I got the general manager's position is as I was the number 2 guy in Modesto, I was given the privilege to set up how many supervisors we needed, what type of freight we were going to be moving through there, what type of manpower was going to be needed. And then an industrial engineer basically designed the building. We put the business model together. Grocery outlet agreed to it. We had some other business that we had secured that allowed us to do this. And it really came down to, you're going to spend half a year up there helping these guys get set up. Why don't you do it for yourself? You know this customer, you know the person running that. So it really did seem like a match made in heaven. I did have another mentor, Rich Kapmeyer, which you are very familiar with. He was running all of this. He had the relationship with Mike Thomas through many years of that business development, and then also another gentleman, Dan Petroni, which you're very familiar with. May you rest in peace. But those 3 gentlemen really, I guess they recognized my hard work or the potential that might be there. And I was blessed to go up to Tacoma and be part of the build and work with the engineers who were building it and getting the contractors. I'd never dreamed of something like that. Usually you go to a new facility that's already built. I got to pick the colors and the furniture, and it was an experience of a lifetime that I can't even put into words, no matter how hard I tried. And I can talk, but it was just a fabulous experience.
Yeah, and that was a continuation of that relationship. And yeah, Rich is somebody I haven't interviewed him yet. He's on the list. He's in the top 10.
Awesome.
I need to reach out. He's been retired, but he invited me to speak at a few engagements that were just career. It was a shift in the way I looked at myself. I mean, I knew I could do it, and I was a good public speaker, and I really hadn't thought about, but some of the opportunities he created for me, and then just introducing me to other divisions within it had gone from VersaCold to AmeriCold. He was just a great, and then another guy, it's a tough love. It's like you're gonna earn it, right? And
yeah.
And so I really like Rich. I'm gonna invite him on. So I'll probably have to call him as soon as we're done. I'll be picking up the phone, because
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, he created some opportunities for me, and even since he's retired, I've had to do other speaking engagements, and I went to him just for suggestions. Where and he's just been a great resource for us.
Yeah.
So I want you to share. I love what you said about the ice cream room gave you an opportunity to make a bunch of mistakes, because I think that was a great line, because my dad had a saying that, and he picked it up somewhere, but life is the hardest teacher, because you always get the lesson after the test.
Yep.
And so, but
that is so smart.
Share some mistakes. I mean, even not from the ice cream room, but what are some of the mistakes you've made along the road that you've learned from? Were there any big pitfalls or mistakes that kind of opened your eyes over the years?
There's things about us as individuals we're always working on. You spend a little bit of time with me, and you know that one of my flaws is I'm kind of loud. I'm always right. Sometimes I'm just thinking out loud, not even realizing it. But for me, continuing that development, and that's why CI is so important to what we're trying to do. Not only is it a way to develop your business opportunities, but it's also a way to develop yourself as a leader, as a follower. If you believe in servant leadership, to make your teams work at their best, where the brightest people get to feel empowered to put their voice out there and stuff. So I would say if the mistakes that, and we make lots of mistakes, right? Ship the wrong thing, pick the wrong thing, introduced yourself to the wrong person. Turned out they were the janitor and the owner was somebody completely different because you just misread the room. No harm, no foul. But I would say on a leadership front, having an opportunity to go to a very large operation in Tennessee for a company, and it was very, very different than what we were doing. The scale was massive. But then you're another part of the country too. So in an effort to try to get the best from the group there, so that way I could win some ownership, there was a promotion. Shortly after I got there, there was a promotion available for an operations manager. My internal sense that I have somebody that would be perfect for this. They're already with the company, just someplace else. It would be a plug and play and we'd grow together. We'd bounce our ideas, but in an effort to really win the trust and respect of that group, ultimately I promoted somebody who maybe wasn't quite ready or was a little bit lesser, but was one of their own. I didn't want to be perceived as coming in and cleaning house because I got that opportunity because there was a problem. Let's face it, you don't get people to come out there and make change when everything's going great.
It was an opportunity.
It was an opportunity. Yes, I can't believe I just said problems. All right. So I had my heart in the right place, but my business sense said for the benefit of this large operation, we really should have, and I had somebody in mind. But we had a couple of internal candidates that were really knew our business, knew our vision and stuff. So I would say that my time, that's probably the one biggest flaw that I made, that I probably still beat myself up. And we all hire people that, and he did an adequate job, but I think we could have been way different and evolved a lot faster with an infusion of a little bit different thinking.
Yeah. New talent, higher level of execution, more on the same page.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a great segue into some of the things that you and I are working on, because some of the things we've done with those larger companies, what I see with our clients, you have big cold storage company like, VersaCold, or it used to be P&O. It's funny that one, when I first started doing business in Modesto, it wasn't Christian Salvinson Inc., but which was CSI. It was CSI, but I didn't even realize till a check came in one time, and it was Capital Security Integrated.
They kept telling us it was a different company. We didn't believe it. It was too convenient.
It was CSI, and then it was P&O.
Yeah.
And then, but big companies like that, AmeriCold, VersaCold, US Cold Storage, the big players, they have departments and capabilities for, like, one of the things we created was a rack safety inspection protocol, and they had trained everybody on the company, and there was a 3-ring binder. And so that's a service that we started offering. And I can't really, because a lot of clients, they don't have an internal engineering department,
Sure.
and they're not trained on it, so they can't do it. So we are kind of a plug and play. We can be that department for somebody, and they don't have to hire, an engineer for 100. I don't even know what they're making anymore. They can just have us do individual projects, and we can do things like, create a standard operating procedure for doing your rack damage assessment, getting things replaced, getting stuff that's unloaded that's safe. Um, and then I know you've worked on some other things. You were telling me about, one of the challenges with cold storage is you need engineers, and they're hard, good refrigeration guys. Almost I get a new cold storage client, before I leave the meeting, they'll ask me, "Hey, do you know anybody who is
Everybody's looking for ammonia engineers. Everybody
engineers?"
is.
So share a little bit about, you created a solution within your company, and I think, just the approach. How did you had some ways of solving that problem that I think are kind of creative or innovative strategy to kind of deal with that.
Now we all generally know that, and it doesn't have to be ammonia, but we generally know that our maintenance team are usually good at doing maintenance. They're not necessarily the best at doing paperwork, right? And as we develop them, or as our processes develop, requirements from the state or whatever the case, regulatory issues, we're asking more and more of our wrench turners, for lack of a better term. And they get nervous, and they're not quite as productive. Hey, don't forget to fill this out. And we really got to watch our work orders, and you got to cut a PO for this. And that contractor can't be on site because he hasn't passed our basic requirements to operate on site safely. And that throws our most valuable commodity, and they really were. They were our highest paid skilled labor at the facility, and they're very rare. And we were either burning them out, or they were going to find jobs that paid less with less, paid about the same but less headaches. So as we were trying to evolve, we were losing our true assets. So how can we bridge this gap? Well, we created a position for our process safety management that basically, for lack of a better term, it's a clerk, somebody who watches the calendar, can maintain when repairs have to be done, 6-month services, 1-month services, 1-year services, a 5-year inspection. This would blow our engineers away because their stuff is all stuffed in a binder, and they're like, So we were able to streamline that with a lower paid employee that we could give some training to, very cost efficient training that allowed them to familiarize themselves with the closed loop system and ammonia program without having to be an engineer, but you are now qualified to help those people with POs and stuff. So for example, that person would come to work, they'd take a look at what has to be done today. It's already organized, it's handed out to the engineers. You're working on this compressor rebuild today. It's about a 6-hour deal. And then you'll be doing a 2-hour, whatever the case may be. Now the engineer is getting it in a nice piece of paper that he can read. He knows exactly what he has to do. He does what he does best. He churns the wrench. He's super happy. When it's all done, he brings that paperwork in. That clerk enters in all the information. It deducts from inventory. If you have a flow system like that, you can automatically deduct the compressor seal or whatever. So your inventory is being done. And then not only have you bridged that gap where that person can do more wrench turning and less repetitive stuff that can be done by somebody else, probably even more efficiently, but you now have a point of contact for that department for safety meetings because the head engineer can't always get there. What if you're the only, rounds have to be made? You now have somebody who can participate in the safety program, the maintenance department, and best case scenario, that person takes that skill set and becomes your engineer. So it's a self-fulfilling program. Not everybody's going to jump over. Not everybody wants to be an ammonia engineer, but there's a lot of people that do, and there really isn't school for them. So it was a way for us to create a couple of win-wins, and it worked really well.
So, and if I understand, we're still able to, you could offer that to somebody right now. If somebody had a cold storage and they wanted to create something like that, do you have the ability to get people certified?
Yeah. So ideally, you want an entry level person to at least have a RETA 1, maybe a RETA 2 certificate. And most of this stuff can be done online. There is a purchase of the materials, but if you buy it as a facility, you are investing in the future development of a commodity that is very, very rare in our business. So if you already have the book, and if your entry level person is at least a RETA 1, that just basically says you can work in our shop. That person is generally going to be told, hey, go grab the brooms, help us with this roll up door. You're being exposed. You're now going to eventually become a journey person. When you have the requisite amount of hours, they'll get you in the nuts and bolts. But in our business today, because of liability, we really farm out most of that now. If it's something serious, let's farm it out. They'll do it faster and they'll accept the liability because they have the training, which makes me come back to what you do and that rack inspection program and how beneficial that could be, because it works the same way, right? You are now outsourcing it to a professional who's going to do it right, do it efficiently. You get to keep building your widgets, but you also have that benefit in your back pocket that a professional did this. And let's hope nothing ever happens. But if it ever does, I have the ability to work with them and we can make sure that we are dialed in. So, that it was one of the small things we can do. And I really want to emphasize this. These are all low cost things. These are all, don't buy a new program. Let's get an Excel spreadsheet out. What do we want to work on? Let's set a timeline on it. Let's give it an owner and let's follow up with it. And if we're all engaged with that, that's all low cost stuff. What we're trying to introduce is thinking, because all the solutions are already at your place. They're already at the biggest cold storage. All the solutions are there, and the people are probably already there. It's just, how do you get them all talking so they're doing it the right way, but not being in meetings all the time? Because then the first thing you're going to do at your CI meeting is, how do we have less meetings? Right? That's the first thing we're going to work on.
Yeah.
How do we have shorter meetings or less meetings? So just want to emphasize, this is all low cost stuff. This is individual team members working together in whatever form is necessary to work for your business. And and you can always add on. It's all plug and play, but it really is the ideas and good people talking to each other.
Yeah, and we've engaged you. We're kind of in the initial stages, but that rack inspection program, we do it for our best clients. I mean, it's one of the highest value things we can offer somebody, and then it's hard to execute. We should be able to do it. I haven't really advertised it because we don't have enough of the resources to cover. We should be doing it for everybody, but that's what you're going to help us with. We're going to get people trained, and then we train their shift managers that when they, they're walking the facility every night looking for other things anyways, damaged pallets, damaged product, did this order ship or not, these important things. They can just add, how to take a look at racking and know if it's not safe and unload it at the end of the shift every day. Because the other thing about rack damage, it's amazing. It happens all the time, never gets reported, and nobody ever did it.
Nope. Wasn't me. First time you hit a rack, first thing you do, if you didn't get hurt, you start looking around. All right, do I have plausible deniability? Right? I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So we're working on that. And that's just part of culture training too. Is like, if you have a rack inspection program, and then it's better to turn it in, right? I mean, you don't want to not turn it in and then have a rack failure, have something catastrophic. The other thing, that the racking is so strong that some systems, you look at some systems, you wonder why it's even still standing. They do rarely collapse, but when it does, when they do, it's really dangerous and it's catastrophic. So,
and Mark, if I could add, being aware of rack safety to include reducing the damage. Don't forget, there's also a downstream cost there's less damage to your equipment. Those forklifts are going to last longer. Those wheels are going to last longer. There's not this, doesn't have to push on one side to get in this rack who shouldn't be driving in anyway. So in this case, red is good, right? Red is opportunity. It's more capacity. We can get that back safely. It's a lot of things. We can cover our behind by having somebody. So I think there's great opportunity. Who doesn't like the rack guy? Everybody loves to see the rack guy.
But that's what I've been telling my guys. And you came in and you go, you know what? It's true. It's true. You didn't make that up.
Hiddleson, all right, we got a new project. We might get the rest of the racks fixed. All right.
Yeah, I love it. Everybody loves the rack guy. That's a quote. I'm gonna get a T-shirt made that says
you do. Yeah, you should get some T-shirts.
So I like to ask. We're getting towards the end. I like to ask at the end, are there any apps or technology or something new that you're using that you like, or something you want to mention, a new tool, or anything? I know you use a lot of spreadsheets. What
and that's a really good question, Mark, because not everything is spreadsheets, and I don't want to, I'm a hands-on, I'm a forklift driver. This is where I come from, but I did learn how to use tools, and we all used Excel, right? We plan labor through it. So that's always going to be in play. It's always nice to snap something, but something that I've been turned on to recently, and this is no plug for this app in any way, but Slack turned out to be pretty good. It allows people to work interactively at the same time. I don't have to be behind my computer to look at your file. And you may think, oh, well, we've been able to look at Excel for a long time on our smartphones. This is a little bit different. I could be on the phone, a three-way. As a matter of fact, we did it today. Three team members were on the phone. We were trying to figure out what exactly we were, what was ours, what we were working on, what we could load first. And we were sending pictures at the same time. So somebody who was stationary, 300 miles away, was getting real-time information and telling us, no, that wasn't the stuff. That's not ours. It's that one over here, that second picture. And so not only are you looking at photos, it's almost like, I don't want to say Facebook for business, because I don't want to, it's not a connotation, I'm not, but people use apps and things to communicate. They send photos. This was on a business side, and it really emphasized a lot of things about, you don't always have to send me back a long soliloquy. It could be just a simple emoji that says that I accepted that, I understand that. And in delving deeper into it, and this is a pretty basic app, but things as simple as, I'm going to send you this Excel spreadsheet that you've never seen before because I just created it, but I'm going to send you a quick video, 13 seconds, just basically explaining to you why I'm sending it to you, what it could do for us and stuff. And you don't have to stop what you're doing. You got a message, and if you're using Slack, you're periodically checking it. But it really is a streamlined, you can have private calls, you can have calls as a team. So like I said, I'm not trying to carry water for Slack, but it's a very efficient, like I said, my theme is low cost, and this seems to work really well. You can always add, I'm sure, premium channels, but for what they give you, I was very impressed. So that's what I'm using right now.
So where did you learn about that? We do want to give a plug to the company where you learned it. I actually, so Spencer, who runs our Manteca yard, Spencer Van Rice, he brought that up a few months ago because we were doing a lot of community. I like text because it's real time. You can answer, like you said, quick question. It's clear, it's in writing. But we had a lot of things where we're looking for stuff that had happened a few months ago. We wanted to get the resources, and Spencer brought it up that he had at a previous job, he had suggested that to the owner that they use it for maintaining different pieces of equipment. That way, if you wanted to go back and look at the maintenance record, each piece of equipment would have its own channel. You didn't have to look through everything. And he said, hey, maybe it'll work here. And he said the other where he worked before, the guy didn't want to learn a new thing. And I was like, well, I don't really want to learn a new thing either. But in the name of being supportive of new ideas, I said, we're going to try this out. And it's actually worked really well. And the other thing I will give Spencer, because I like this as a leadership too, it's like, you want to do something new, that's awesome. You're in charge of this project. And it was mostly benefiting him and benefiting us getting information for him. So he really took ownership of it. And when it started working right away, I really took ownership of it because I was like, hey, he's right.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And he did drive that innovation. So thank you for mentioning that. Slack. Yeah. And I do a lot of reading, and I will see something with Slack. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's dumb. Just like 5 years ago, I didn't listen to podcasts, and now I'm hosting one. So I have to be willing to learn. And
absolutely.
And thank you for sharing that example. What is the best way if somebody wants to get a hold of you to do a project, a small project that has to do with refrigeration or continuous improvement? When you say CI, stands for a lot of things, but it stands for continuous improvement. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, I want to be very transparent on this. This is a project that a big driver is my wanting to be connected to this business on some level. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to step away from the business for a little bit, and I didn't realize how much I missed it. Not just missed it, but how much I equated satisfaction and accomplishment with projects, not necessarily what my paycheck looked like, but what I was building with people. There's nothing like having an employer or coworker come up to you and say, I can't believe I just put a down payment on a house. I want to thank you so much. And you're thinking, thank me. You've done all the work. All right, I'm probably sitting in an office, coming up with ideas or whatever, but to impact people like that. If you don't mind, Mark, if they could reach out to you initially, and maybe you can share that information. I'm sure nobody will be calling, but just in case somebody does.
Yeah, they will.
No,
The
just in
phone's
case
going to
somebody
start
does.
ringing. So yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Yeah.
My email, we have it. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
And definitely, because there are going to be some opportunities. I mean, we already have, and I've got clients in mind that they're going to want to, they're going to want to see this episode because of the background. And I just want to thank you, Tony Caetano, 30-year veteran in the cold storage industry, Army veteran. I really genuinely thank you for your service. I can't say it enough. It means a lot to me. And I loved having you on. I mean, this has been fun. This is awesome. I've been looking forward to it. But this has been great. Thank you for joining us.
I can't thank you enough. And like I said, I'm so honored that you would even put me in the top 30. You keep saying top 10, and I got it on video. So
Yeah, you are. You're one of those one. Ever since the opportunity moment, where our team had
Wow.
screwed something up, and you're like, "Look, this is an opportunity. We're going to fix it. We fixed it in the right way." And we've just watched each other, kind of go through our careers. So it's really cool to have relationships with people, that held us to a higher standard, but still was, collaboration, and we appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate your friendship.
And I appreciate everything, Mark. You're fantastic, and your friendship especially.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.